Okay, it feels like an adventurous week and already with glass fly. I'm going to just tie like a San Juan worm or something. Easier. That's not what I'm tying today. Today we're going to tie I'm going to go for it. We're going to go with a dry fly. We're going to use, I actually am using silk here to tie down on a hook, and this is just going to be it's going to be a Mayfly, a little bit of more of a yellow colored Mayfly. And as I've noted before, dry flies sometimes are the death of me. So the first thing that we're going to do is we've got that on there, and I'm going to use this as kind of a measurement. So I go most of the way to the point of the hook, and then I go about halfway back, and that's where we're going to tie in the wing. So once we have these feathers kind of where we want them, and hopefully it'll be fairly forgiving with me, we're going to wrap our thread counterclockwise just to make sure it wraps back around my fingers here, and I'm going to take a single wrap around like that, and we're just going to pull that straight down and fairly tight, just like so. And then we're going to take another thread wrap, and we're moving now back towards the back end of the bend of the hook here. And from here, I'm going to come in with my scissors, and I am going to try to cut these off here at a bit of a tapered angle. So that will help us out with the taper on this fly. It will be tapered, but not a significant body, but you can see now with those two feathers kind of in position. Right now my biggest concern is just making sure I get them tied in all the way. I can see already from where they're sitting that I should be able to work with them just fine. So we're going to go ahead and start bringing this yellow silk thread back. Coq de Leon, actually. We're going to use some white Coq de Leon. And I'm just going to grab myself a little bunch like that. As usual, I'm going to grab them and pull them straight up from the stem of that feather, and that will help make sure that those stay in alignment, or those tips align. And then I'm just going to pinch, and I'm going to pull up a little bit. So I've got the tips locked in place. Should be even. And now I'm just going to rip those right off of that feather. From there, we're going to look for length. I want the length of these to be about the length of the body, maybe a little bit longer, but not much. So I've got my measurement there. And we're going to go ahead and take a wrap or two here, and then we'll kind of see where things are, how things have settled out, and that's not a bad length. For me anyway, I'm good with that length. So now I'm going to just go ahead and take some turns moving backwards a little bit towards where the barb of the hook would be. This is a barbless hook, so I have to use my imagination. So basically what I did right there, even though it probably looked very funky, was I took one thread wrap underneath this tail back here. So I threw one thread wrap back underneath, and that'll just help them prop up a little bit. I can go ahead and cut these for length now, and remembering that I want to keep a taper on this body. I want to cut these off just about where the butt ends of our starling feathers were, and that'll help that just maintain that kind of that taper going up. From here, we're going to look for our next material, which is going to be some silver tinsel. So for this pattern, I'm going to go ahead and tie in a little bit of tinsel as well. It's really probably one of the smaller sizes of tinsel that you can get. And I'm just going to, like I do quite often, I'm going to draw that back for length while trying not to pull it completely off the hook here. And so now I can go ahead and take those wraps here. We're going to go ahead and take some wraps backwards, trying to make them as touching as we possibly can. That'll help us keep the body from getting too thick, especially when we get back towards the tails. But what we do have to have for sure is we've got to have that silver tinsel or gold tinsel, whichever kind it ends up being, starting right there back where the tail fibers are. So I've got to make sure I've got it tied back all the way back to there, at least. So that's going to do us good there. So once I've got those, I've got that body kind of tapered in. Now we're going to just take some wraps of the tinsel. Try to avoid the hook point at all costs, because it will just break this tinsel right off. I know I say that a lot, and you're probably going, well, I don't see that happen a lot, and that's because I edit it out when it does happen. So I'm going to be fairly deliberate about moving up here. So once I've got that about there, I'm going to keep my attention on that material, my tinsel there. And we're going to try to lock that down with a couple of thread wraps here. A couple behind it, over the top of it, and then we'll take a couple of wraps here back towards these wings that we kind of have in place there. Again, trying not to build up very much bulk. I should be able to swing in here now. Use a different pair of scissors, because this tinsel actually is metal and I prefer not to use my really good scissors on it. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to tie in the hackle. As I always end up saying and showing, but I love whiting. That alone has improved my dry fly tying a little bit, because it's a little bit more forgiving. So we're actually using kind of a barred light ginger hackle here to go along with that yellow coloring on our body. So it's not white, it's actually kind of a barred ginger. So I'm going to get that a little bit here into position, so I can tie it into place, and just about like so. Now I have it just about where I want it in place. It's at this point that I'm going to pull these wings back a little bit so I can go in front as well, just to make sure I get that nice and secure. I'm much happier with that. So we still have those wings in place. Got my hackle tied in, and from here I'm just going to kind of move my thread up. I'm going to leave myself some space, about almost an eye length away from the eye of this hook, and then we're going to start with our hackle. And I'm going to try to put one wrap and then the next wrap right in front of it. And with that like that, I'm now going to pull those wings a little bit backwards so we can wrap in the front. And we'll take a few more wraps here, pulling that material back, but trying to keep one wrap pretty much in front of the last wrap. So that's going to be just about where I want it. I'm going to do some wiggly stuff there with my thread. That will just help me so I don't trap as much of the hackle material with the hackle fibers. And from there, I'm going to kind of sweep everything a little bit back and out of the way. Looks like I got a straggler over here. And I don't want to have a straggler over there. So now we're pretty good, and we've got a nice kind of yellow head going there. We'll have a tiny little bit of cleanup to do here. But what I'm going to do right at the moment is give myself a little bit of extra thread, and I'm going to pull out our whip finisher. Got that going and ready to go. And I'm going to be meticulous about my whip finishing too. Just trying to... It's another place where you're going to end up catching some additional fibers that I try to minimize as much as possible. So just a few thread wraps like that, and we'll go ahead and let that come off our whip finisher. See what this guy's doing here with my other finger. And I'm going to let that just slide right off the end of the hook there. And I'll put my whip finisher away. I can see where that thread is ending. I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors now. I'm going to pull that thread a little bit forward, just so that I'm not cutting any of these fibers, and I can see it a little bit better. So just like that. And then the same thing with the hackle. I'm going to turn this a little bit upside down because that's where it ended up. And I'm going to want to clip this off really, really at the very base. And with that, we're good to go. Just again, a kind of a generic Mayfly dry pattern. We'll use the little Starling feathers there for our wings that are a little bit taller than our hackles. Different color. We'll use light ginger, and then we'll use the coque de leon for the tail. And there you have it.